Hi, this is Les Posen, clinical psychologist, flight-wise fear of flying, and other related anxieties. Welcome to the channel. For those of you who've recently subscribed and wondering where's all the content, well, my apologies, life has got the better of me, and I will do my best to become more popular with my publications. I hope that I can start to do things much more regularly, but there's been medical stuff happening and all sorts of things. I'm good, don't worry. For those who are new to the channel, today's little episode is kind of a bit of a summary of my way of thinking. So if you're new here, let today's session be a bit of a guideline, and then go searching through all the other videos that I've uploaded over the last, I guess, decade or so, and see what suits you. There's no particular order to things. A lot of the time, the videos I post are prompted by a session that I may have had with the patient, or a week's worth of sessions, and somehow they all come together and promotes some new ideas, a new way of thinking. I'm always learning from my patients. Indeed, that's the way I think accomplished psychologists and psychotherapists learn the most, from their patients, the least from their academic training, which is usually out of date within 5 years. Anyway, so today, let me talk to you a little bit about my thinking about anxiety in general, and then perhaps more applied to fear of flying. Take from it what you wish. So we're going to talk a little bit about things like worrying and overthinking things, which is the expression that people use. I'm not particularly fond of the expression overthinking. What it does mean to me is that people are thinking things which are unhelpful and keep them in a kind of a thinking loop from which they can't easily escape and find alternative ways of contemplating whatever situation or predicament, to use the rather kind of negative term, they find themselves in. So stay with me for this particular session. We'll look at some science-based strategies for anxiety so you can take back control. And anxiety is always, I think, about some future prediction of loss of control, but it's felt in the immediate now with a series of sensations and behaviors and thoughts. I want to start with one of the most important techniques that I've discovered works really well with people and backed up by a fair bit of research, and that's something that we call externalization. So rather than the old dictum of, take ownership of your feelings and so forth, that's all very well and good. But you have to understand that with anxiety, you are working sometimes with and oftentimes against 100,000 years of human evolution, which has evolved to help you survive by detecting threats in the environment, which 100,000 years ago were all over the place, and for which we were very ill-equipped to deal with. We hadn't yet invented proper tools and weaponry. All we could do was shout at an animal or throw stones. We weren't really very good at defending ourselves with instruments or technologies. That, of course, changed. That doesn't mean our anxieties have gone poof and disappeared. The things we worry about now are very different than the things that we worried about back then, but our capacity to worry, our capacity to feel apprehensive and anxious, that's still very much wired into us, to use that rather cliched expression. So one of the things I like people to do is externalize their anger. Rather than saying it's all within me, understand the sources of your concerns, and then create a series of scenarios where you're pushing back against these kind of automatic sensations and automatic thoughts. We call that externalization. There's a video I created some time back from the Big Bang Theory, where we see Penny, the young blonde woman trying to be an actress who's come from Nebraska, who lives opposite Sheldon and his roommate Leonard. Sheldon would appear to be on the autism spectrum scale of some sort. extremely bright, 2 PhDs by the time he's 16, but his social skills are somewhat wanting. Every so often in an episode we see Leonard standing behind someone showing Sheldon a sign that says sarcasm, because Sheldon doesn't get it. And there's a meme within The Big Bang where Sheldon keeps going over to Penny's apartment. Penny, Penny, Penny. Initially this annoys the heck out of her, no matter what she does, reasoning, placating, using her sexual abilities, if you like, or her attractiveness. It has no effect on Sheldon until she finally realizes there's only one person in this relationship who's going to have to change, and that's her, and that's the acceptance that Sheldon is Sheldon. There's very little she can do to change him. Okay? So what she has learned is, rather than taking his behavior head on, she has to kind of acknowledge that this is how Sheldon behaves and decide how much energy and attention do I want to give it. And in the example in the video I use, she will often answer his door knocking by saying, "What's up, Buttercup? What's the gist, physicist?" And when he makes his demand, he always makes a demand on her, she simply looks at him and goes, "No." And then she follows through with the behavior, which is to close the door, which of course only annoys Sheldon even more. So I often say to patients, rather than saying, "Oh, I'm really anxious here," you can say to yourself, "Well, that's my inner Sheldon knocking, trying to get my attention." That's interesting. So we're trying to replace this, "Oh my God, it's happening again," by standing back from it a little bit, creating a little bit of distance. That's the externalizing part. And looking at it and saying, "I wonder what's going on here. What's the trigger here? What's I know he's trying to upset me to get my attention, to make a demand on me, but do I have to give in to it? Is it something that is so life-threatening that I must freeze on the spot and give in to it?" And the answer, of course, you'll find most of the time is no. Okay, so curiosity, like "What's up, Buttercup?" is really important. So we might call this sort of relaxed curiosity. Now, do remember that I've always said here that calmness is not the cure for anxiety. Curiosity is. If you should happen to have moments of calmness after you've tackled your anxiety, that's a bonus. That's an example of you kind of getting some control over what's going on here. Don't think of calmness, walking on the plane calm, as the target behavior. Self-management with whatever the airline throws at you, which is what can happen. It's not always going to be the same kind of plane, the same kind of time, the same kind of seat. You have to be able to go in there knowing that whatever gets thrown at me in a regular, ordinary flight, I can handle it. I have the tools to manage myself. Okay? Second part, I just want to focus on thoughts. My dictum here is, just because you have a thought, your thought pops in out of nowhere, doesn't make it true. The example I give is maybe on a Thursday night here in Melbourne, we have a game called Powerball. You have this all over the world. And I might sit here and I'll go 4, 6, 8, 12, 15, 21, 32. And my patient will look at me and say, "Well, what's all that about?" I say, "Well, they're the numbers for Lotto tonight. They're the first numbers that popped into my head. Do you want to go in with me? We'll spend $10,000 and we'll back us." And of course, they have a bit of a chuckle about this. And it's my way of saying that just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. Okay, you have to learn to know that thoughts just can come in from all over the place. And just because they're your thoughts, maybe you can't trace them to anybody else, or maybe they are an echo, but just because it's your thought doesn't make it true. Corollary number 2 on that. Just because it's the first thought that pops in doesn't make it true. Okay? Just because it's the first thing that pops in doesn't make it true. And the last corollary is this. Just because the thought appears to be accompanied by physical sensations, "Oh, I have that thought, my heart's beating so fast, my stomach's in knot, I've gone all tense, I'm not breathing." Those physical sensations, which can give rise to emotions as the next level of abstraction, the next level of understanding these sensations, we call emotions before thought comes in. Just because thoughts are accompanied by sensations and or emotions isn't evidence that the thought was true. It's evidence that the thought can often create a reaction within us, which we call sensations or emotions. Okay? That then begins a loop, because you have emotions or sensations, and then you have thoughts about those. Oh, here we go again. I knew this would happen. Why does this keep happening to me? This is a bad sign. And you can see how you go round and round in circles, and it almost forces you to have a sense of loss of control. We want to regain that control. Okay? Next part is this. You want to be able to do something that tells your brain, that emotion part, the threat detection part, that you're in charge. That is, your thinking and reasoning part is going to run the show. You want to be able to say to it, stand down at ease. This is not your job to handle. Okay? Once you're sure that what you're going to go into is fundamentally safe, as flying is, you have to find ways to reinforce that message to your brain, which is sort of going, no, what about this, what about that? You've got to be able to say, no, here's what we're going to do. That doing is a combination of thinking. Here's how I'm going to think about this. Here's the accurate information about what's going on. Here are the alternatives, and here's how I'm going to find out which of the alternatives is probably offering me the better explanations, greater proximity to the truth. But that must be followed up by an action. One of the first actions can be to take back your breathing. Rather than going, what's going on? You want to go, oh, here's my breathing again, try to get me to freeze so I won't be noticed by a wild animal, not making a sound, not breathing. Reclaim your breathing. Several ways to do that. One, put your hand, which is ever your dominant hand, on your tummy, pinky, resting about where your belly button would be. That means it's sitting on top of your diaphragm. You can take your non-dominant hand, in my case it's the left, put it over your chest. Hand doesn't move, but your right hand, if you're dominant with the right hand, it's going to move in and out. It's going to move out when you breathe in through the nose. It's going to fall back. You're not pushing, it's going to fall back when you breathe, when you are in between cycles. And the cycle is this. You can start with in for 5, hand pushes out, pause for 2, out for 5, pause for 2. So that's 5, 2, 5, 2. Basically, it means you're going to be breathing somewhere between 6 and 8 cycles per minute. The average person breathes shallowly from up here, roughly 15, 16 breaths per minute. We're trying to halve that and change locations to down here. In another video, I'll explain what's actually going on physiologically when we employ our diaphragm. So that's really important. Breathing in this case is a focusing strategy. It's moving your attention away from, to, hold on, let me do this first. Let me just do a breathing exercise for a minute and then I'll return to my thinking. It's basically a resetting of the alarm system, temporarily shutting it off while you check out, is there really a fire in the house? If you're a dog walker, if you're a dog trainer, it's a bit like applying a correction. You're not pulling the dog back in, just little correction. The dog gives you your attention. Just trying to break that connection with sniffing another dog, break its attention. Little bit of a pull, a correction movement. Okay? And finally, we want to move away from the idea of employing more and more distractions to try and keep ourselves calm or unaware that we're in danger. You will find that in the long term, it has its usefulness, especially if you're engaging in pain. I've been going through some dental work. You can hear me lisping a bit, and I've been 4 hours in the chair twice in the last few months, and I've had to use all of my abilities as a psychologist to be able to sit there for 4 hours while they work on me, work that's been a long time coming. And I think both the two dentists working, they both said to me, how are you able to do this? And I said, well, I have the ability to focus and shift my attention away from all the drilling and grinding that's going on. I know some of you are already going, oh. I had my podcast going with my noise cancelling headphones in, my new AirPods. I have a little bit of hypnosis training just to sort of take the edge and focus my attention. That doesn't mean hypnosis is your cure for fear of flying, by the way. Don't go down that track with me. We're going to use really well-based scientific evidence of changing focus, and breathing is one of those things. Okay? So, finalizing. Anxiety is something that thrives on uncertainty. You not having a plan, you not knowing what to do. The more you freak out about not knowing what to do, the more you're going to rise up your panicky levels of disconnection from what's going on around you. So we've got to use techniques like externalizing, curiosity, separating out your thoughts from first thoughts to considered thoughts, acting with a purpose, a way that's consistent with new ways of thinking and doing, and planning ahead. That's how you're going to help to reclaim control over your anxiety. Part of it starts with accepting that I get anxious from time to time. We all do. But there are things we can do about it. And that's what I want to do in the next couple of videos with you. Nail down some of the ways of thinking and doing. So, if you like what I've just said, stay with me. There are ways to subscribe to the channel. Let's not go into all those details. Click this and push this. I don't need to do that with you. You know what you want to do here. So, I look forward to catching you up the next time. Thanks, everyone. Speak soon again.